In 1874, a Texas Ranger earned about $40 a month, furnished his own horse, and rode into country where the nearest help was 3 days away. What kept him alive was not his colt. It was 20 small tools and tricks packed into saddlebags that weighed less than a modern backpack. Number 14 grows wild across half of Texas, and most people walk right past it. And number 1 cannot be bought at any price. Let's begin the countdown with number 20. Number 20, rawhide whang strings. Every ranger kept a bundle of thin rawhide strips rolled up in his saddlebags, and old-timers swore a man was only as good as his whang leather. These were the frontier's duct tape. When a stirrup leather snapped 40 miles from the nearest settlement, a ranger soaked a strip in water, wrapped the brake tight, and let the Texas sun do the rest. Rawhide shrinks as it dries, pulling itself into a bind harder than iron wire. Rangers used whang strings to mend bridles, lash a cracked rifle stock, hang meat, splint a broken tent pole, and even bind a prisoner's wrists when the irons ran out. A whole bundle cost nothing. You cut them yourself from the hide of any beef killed for camp meat, working the strips over a wagon wheel until they turned supple. Company records from the Frontier Battalion mention rawhide repairs on nearly every scout report, patched saddles, and mended gear that kept men in the field for weeks past their supplies. Modern paracord does half the job at 10 times the price because paracord cannot shrink itself tight. That trick belonged to rawhide alone, and almost nobody alive today knows how to cut it, cure it, and use it. Number 19, the char cloth tin. Matches existed in the 1870s, but they cost money. They crushed in a saddlebag, and one river crossing ruined the whole box. So rangers carried a small tin, often an old percussion cap box, packed with char cloth, flint, and a steel striker. Char cloth was nothing more than scraps of cotton shirt cooked inside a sealed tin until they turned black and fragile. One spark from the steel and that black cloth caught a glowing ember every single time, wet weather or dry. A ranger would tip the ember into a nest of shredded cedar bark, fold it closed, and swing it gently until smoke turned to flame. The whole kit weighed a few ounces and never failed. Old scout journals describe men starting fires in a norther with sleet coming down sideways, while the matches in their pockets had dissolved into paste. Making char cloth took 10 minutes at any campfire, so the tin refilled itself for free, forever. Today, survival stores sell ferro rods and waterproof matches, but the self-replenishing fire kit, the one that cost nothing and worked in any weather, vanished from common knowledge within a single generation. Your great-great-grandfather could make fire from his own worn-out shirt. Most people today cannot. Number 18, the beeswax plug. Tucked into nearly every ranger's kit was a lump of beeswax about the size of a hen's egg, and the list of jobs it did would fill a page. Rubbed along sewing thread, it kept stitches from rotting in the rain. Pressed around the seams of boots, it turned cheap leather waterproof for a week of river crossings. Melted over a knot, it locked the knot forever. Worked into a bowstring, a fishing line, or the lashings of a pack, it sealed out water and grit. Rangers rubbed it on saddle sores, on cracked lips, on the frizzen of an old flintlock, and on cartridges to keep black powder dry through a Gulf Coast storm. A pound of beeswax cost about 30 cents at any settlement store, and a single egg-sized lump lasted a season. When a bullet mold ran hot, wax lubricated it. When a wound needed a salve, wax mixed with tallow made one. Camp cooks even used it to seal jars of preserved fruit. Modern gear catalogs sell a dozen separate products: seam sealer, thread conditioner, lip balm, leather dressing. That one 30-cent lump replaced entirely. The men who rode the Nueces strip never left camp without it, and today almost nobody carries wax at all. Number 17, Pinole. Before energy bars, before trail mix, there was parched corn ground fine, and it may still be the most efficient trail food ever devised. Rangers learned it from Tejano scouts, who learned it from generations before them. Dry corn was toasted in a skillet until it browned and popped it, then ground into a coarse flour and sweetened with a little sugar or mixed with cinnamon when a man could get it. A single pound of Pinole carried enough calories to keep a rider moving for 2 days. You ate it dry by the handful, washed down with water, or stirred it into a cup to make an instant porridge. It never spoiled, never molded, never attracted flies, and never announced your camp with cooking smoke, which mattered when the men you were trailing were also trailing you. Ranger companies on long scouts through the Llano Estacado carried Pinole when bacon ran out and game stayed scarce. A sack cost pennies to make from any corn crop. It was cool food for hot country, no fire required, no cleanup, no trace. The United States Army studied it. Long-distance runners in Mexico still use it. And yet the average American pantry sitting on 50 pounds of cornmeal potential has never heard of it. Number 16. Here's where it gets interesting because this next one, Hollywood, turned into a myth and buried the truth. The horsehair mecate. Rangers rode with a rope braided from the mane and tail hair of their own horses, about 22 feet of it, and the movies claim they circled it around their bedrolls to keep rattlesnakes away. That part is folklore. A snake crawls over horsehair without a second thought. But the real uses were better than the myth. A mecate served as lead rope, picket line, and rein all in one. And unlike grass rope, it never stiffened in rain or froze in a blue norther. The prickly texture gave a rider feel and grip that no cotton rope matched, and a horse could be staked out on it all night without the rope kinking. When a girth strap broke, braided horsehair replaced it. When a man needed a fish stringer, a rifle sling, or a tourniquet, the mecate unbraided into usable cord. Making one took hours of patient twisting by firelight, hair pulled from your own mount, which meant the rope literally grew back. Vaqueros charged $3 for a good one, nearly a tenth of a ranger's monthly pay, and men paid it gladly. Try finding anyone under 70 who can braid one today. Number 15, the wool serape. Forget the canvas bedroll for a moment. The single most versatile piece of cloth on the frontier was the heavy wool serape, and rangers adopted it from Mexican vaqueros within a decade of the force being founded in 1823. Wool insulates even when soaking wet, something no cotton blanket and very few modern synthetics can claim. Draped over the shoulders, it shed rain like a roof. Rolled behind the saddle, it was a bed. Folded on the ground, it was a poker table, a dinner table, and a place to strip a rifle without losing screws in the grass. In a gunfight from horseback, men wrapped the left forearm in it as a crude shield against knife slashes. In a dust storm, it covered a horse's eyes. A good saltillo serape cost $5 to $8, serious money in 1875, but it outlasted 10 cheap blankets. Ranger memoirs describe sleeping warm through ice storms with nothing but a serape and a saddle for a pillow, feet toward the fire, ground heat trapped beneath. The modern sleeping bag does one job. The serape did 15, weighed 4 pounds, and never needed a stuff sack. It vanished from American kits the moment mail-order catalogs promised something newer. Number 14, prickly pear cactus. Rangers crossing the dry country between waterholes carried knowledge worth more than any canteen, and it grew on every hillside. The flat pads of prickly pear singed over a fire to burn off the spines, then split open, held a moist pulp that men and horses both could chew for moisture when the water ran out. It would not replace a spring, but it kept a mouth from cracking, and a horse on its feet for one more day, and one more day was often the difference. The real forgotten use was medical. A split pad, warmed and bound flesh side down over a wound, drew infection like a poultice, and frontier families used the same trick on everything from boils to arrow wounds. The fruit, the red tunas ripening in late summer, gave sugar and vitamin C to men who had eaten nothing but bacon and coffee for weeks, and scurvy was a real enemy on long scouts. Modern science caught up in the 2000s when researchers confirmed prickly pear pulp has genuine anti-inflammatory and wound healing properties. Your local pharmacy now sells cactus extract in a tube for $12. The Rangers got it free everywhere, forever, and knew exactly which pad to cut. That knowledge is gone from all but a few ranch families. Number 13, the oversized bandana. Not the little squares sold at gas stations today. Rangers carried silk or cotton bandanas nearly a yard across, and the list of jobs that cloth performed reads like a survival manual. Pulled over the nose, it filtered the alkali dust that could blind a man on a cattle trail. Soaked and tied around the neck, it cooled the blood in 100-degree heat. Folded into a pad, it strained mud and wigglers out of stock tank water before drinking. It was a sling for a broken arm, a bandage, a tourniquet, a pot holder, a hobble in an emergency, a flag for signaling across a valley, and a blindfold for a panicked horse in a river crossing. Men strained coffee through it, wrapped biscuits in it, and used it to grip a rope that would otherwise burn the palm to the bone. A good silk one cost 50 cents and lasted years. Trail veterans said you could judge a man's experience by the size of his bandana. Greenhorns wore small ones. The modern equivalent, the shima, gets marketed to soldiers as tactical gear at $20 a piece. It is the same tool. The knowledge just left the country and came back with a new name and a markup. Number 12, the tallow candle stub. In the bottom of nearly every ranger's saddlebag rolled a stub of tallow candle 2 or 3 inches long, and it was worth far more than the penny it cost. First, light. A candle stub burned steady inside a hat or a scraped out hole when a lantern was too much to carry. Second, fire starting. Shave a few curls of tallow onto damp kindling, and even rain-soaked wood caught, a trick that saved lives during the wet northers of February. Third, the candle was food-grade fat. Rendered beef tallow could grease a squeaking wagon hub, waterproof boot leather, lubricate a sticky rifle action, soothe rope-burned hands, and in genuine starvation, be eaten. Men rubbed it on chapped faces in winter wind. They dripped it into cracked hooves. They sealed letters with it. During the Civil War years, when supplies ran to nothing, Texas frontier companies made their own from beef fat and cotton wick, so the tool refilled itself with every steer butchered for camp. One item, 1 penny, a dozen uses, and total field independence. Modern kits carry a flashlight, a fire starter, lip balm, and gun oil as 4 separate purchases. The Rangers carried 1 greasy stub and knew what to do with it. Number 11, the awl and sinew kit. Rolled in a scrap of buckskin, most Rangers carried a stitching AWL, a couple of heavy needles, and a length of sinew or waxed linen thread. And this little kit is why their gear lasted 20 years while ours lasts 2. When a saddle seam split on the trail, a Ranger punched holes with the awl, ran a saddle stitch with 2 needles, and the repair was stronger than the original seam. Boot soles flapping loose got pegged and sewn by firelight. Torn saddlebags, ripped trousers, a bridle cheek strap, a wagon sheet, a bullet pouch, all of it mendable in an evening. Sinew came free from the backstrap of any deer, split into threads, and used wet so it shrank tight as it dried, the same self-tightening magic as rawhide. Company quartermaster records from the 1870s show Rangers drawing thread and awls more often than ammunition, because a man shot rarely but mended constantly. The full kit weighed 2 ounces and cost maybe 40 cents. Today, when a strap breaks, we throw the item away and order another, and the average American cannot sew through leather at all. The Rangers would have considered that a kind of helplessness no grown man could afford. Number 10, second pattern break, and this one is about food companies, because they are the reason you forgot this next one. real jerked beef, not the sugar glazed candy sold in plastic bags at the checkout counter. Rangers cut lean beef into strips a half-inch thick, rubbed them with salt and black pepper, and hung them on cords in the sun and wind for 2 or 3 days until they turned hard and nearly black. No sugar, no smoke flavoring, no nitrates. A pound of fresh beef cost about 8 cents and dried down into a pocket-sized ration that kept for months in any weather. Men ate it as they rode, or pounded it between stones and boiled it into a broth thick enough to stand a spoon in. Combined with a little tallow and dried berries, it became pemmican, the most calorie-dense trail food on the continent. Here is what got buried. Commercial jerky today is loaded with sugar because sugar is cheap, addictive, and shortens shelf life just enough to keep you buying. The original product needed none of it. Salt, pepper, air, and patience. A ranger could make a month of rations from one steer, and the skill took an afternoon to learn. It fed the frontier for 60 years, and the modern version is barely the same food. Number 9, water reading and the gourd canteen. Rangers in the dry country carried water in gourds and canvas bags rather than metal canteens, and the reason surprises people. Evaporation through the gourd skin or the canvas weave cooled the water inside, the same principle as a modern evaporative cooler. Metal canteens turned water blood warm by noon, but the container mattered less than the knowledge, and this is what nobody teaches anymore. Rangers found water by reading the land. Doves fly to water at dusk in straight lines, so you watched the doves and rode their heading. Cottonwoods and willows meant water within 10 feet of the surface, and a man could dig to it with a knife and a tin cup. Cattle trails converge as they approach water and fan out, leaving it, so you followed the convergence. A canyon bend on the outside curve held pools long after the rest of the creek went dry. Bees fly directly home to water and hive, and mustangers followed beelines for miles. Every one of those signs still works today, and search and rescue reports are full of people who died of thirst within 2 miles of water they could not see. The gourd cost nothing. The knowledge was priceless. Both are nearly gone. Number 8, the pocket whetstone. A dull knife on the frontier was not an inconvenience. It was a slow-motion emergency, and every ranger carried a small whetstone, often a piece of Arkansas novaculite the size of a domino, worth about 25 cents at any mercantile. A sharp knife skinned the deer, cut the whang strings, trimmed the hoof, shaved the kindling, and opened the abscess. A dull one slipped and laid a hand open 80 miles from a doctor, and ranger surgeons' records show far more knife accidents than gunshot wounds in an average year. The forgotten part is the ritual. Men sharpened every evening by the fire, whether the blade needed it or not. A few slow circles on spit wet stone, because maintenance done nightly takes 1 minute and maintenance done never takes stitches. Old hands could put an edge on a blade that shaved arm hair, using nothing but the stone, a strip of leather belt, and patience. And they judged a stranger instantly by pulling a thumb across his knife. Today, most kitchen drawers hold knives that have never once been sharpened, and the skill of freehand sharpening taught to every frontier 12-year-old has been outsourced to electric gadgets that eat the blade alive. 1 domino-sized stone, 25 cents, a lifetime of sharp. Number 7, the oilcloth slicker. Before rubber and long before Gore-Tex, rangers stayed dry under yellow oilcloth, cotton canvas soaked in linseed oil, and dried in the sun until it turned stiff, waterproof, and nearly indestructible. The famous fish brand slickers of the trail driving era cost around $3 and covered a mounted man from neck to stirrups, with a split tail that draped over the saddle and channeled rain away from the seat. But the slicker was never just a raincoat. Spread on the ground, it was a dry floor for a bedroll. Rigged over a rope between 2 mesquites, it was a tent. Wrapped around a rifle in a river crossing, it kept the powder dry. Laid across a patch of grass, it caught morning dew that could be wrung into a cup, a genuine water collection method in dry country. Men carried spare linseed oil and redressed the cloth each season, so the coat renewed itself for a decade. 2 slickers, buttoned together, sheltered 4 men in a hailstorm. When rubber coats arrived, they cracked in heat and stank in sun, and old rangers kept their oilcloth for years out of pure distrust. The modern rain jacket does 1 job and delaminates in 5 years. The slicker did 6 jobs, and its owner could rebuild it with a jug of oil. Number 6, Hobbles and the picket pin. A ranger afoot in hostile country was a dead man walking, and every veteran said the same thing. Take care of your horse before yourself and never trust the night. So they carried 2 small tools that no survival course mentions today. Rawhide hobbles, figure-8 cuffs that buckled around a horse's front legs, let the animal graze all night but kept it from drifting more than a mile. The iron picket pin, a foot-long stake with a swivel ring, screwed into prairie sod and held a horse on a 30-foot rope where there was not a tree for 50 miles. The craft was in the details. You staked a horse on fresh grass and moved the pin at midnight so the animal fed twice. You hobbled the steady horses and picketed only the flighty one because horses stay with the herd. You slipped the hobbles high in wet weather so they would not gall the pasterns. Men who skipped these steps woke up in the big empty, holding a saddle and nothing else. And the reports of the frontier battalion record more men set afoot by carelessness than by theft. The pin cost 40 cents. The hobbles were homemade. The habit of securing your transportation every single night, that discipline, is the part nobody teaches anymore. Number 5, third pattern break, because this next one sounds impossible until you understand it. Carrying fire. Rangers on cold scouts did not always start a fire each night. Sometimes they carried one all day on horseback. The tool was a fire horn or simply a tin can punched with holes, packed with a smoldering chunk of dried prickly pear trunk, punky rotten oak, or dense fungus called horsehoof conch. These materials do not flame. They smolder slowly for 8 to 12 hours, glowing at the core like a cigar. At evening camp, a man tipped the coal into kindling, blew, and had flame in 30 seconds. No flint, no matches, no failure, even in rain. Plains tribes had carried fire this way for centuries, and rangers, whatever else was between them, copied what worked. The method also solved a tactical problem. Starting a fire from scratch at dusk meant smoke at exactly the hour smoke shows farthest. A carried coal made a small, fast, nearly smokeless fire. The sotol plant, whose dry flower stalk makes both a hand-drilled fire kit and a torch, backed up the system across the whole Trans-Pecos. Total cost, nothing. Weight, a few ounces. Today, this skill survives among perhaps a few hundred primitive skills instructors in the entire country, and it once belonged to every 12-year-old west of the Colorado River. Number 4, mesquite beans. Most Texans today curse mesquite as a ranch-choking weed, and that fact would have astonished a ranger of 1860, because mesquite beans were a survival food so reliable that men planned scouts around the harvest. The long yellow pods, ripening in July, are sweet in the husk, and the ground pod meal runs high in protein and natural sugar. Rangers ate them raw off the tree, riding at a walk, pulling pods by the handful. Ground between stones, the meal mixed with water into cakes that baked hard on a rock beside the fire and kept for weeks. Horses ate the pods greedily, which meant a man's mount could refuel in country with no grass at all, and mustangers fattened whole remudas on mesquite flats. The Comanche, the finest light cavalry on earth, timed movements around the bean harvest, and the rangers who fought them learned to do the same. Modern nutrition science confirms mesquite meal has a remarkably low glycemic index, and health food stores now sell it ground in Peru, shipped north at more than $20 a pound. It is falling off the trees, free across 70 million acres of Texas right now. The knowledge of what to do with it fed 2 nations of horsemen, and today it feeds almost no one. Number 3, the Rawhide riata. Beyond the whang strings, most rangers carried 60 feet of braided rawhide rope, the riata, and it was the frontier's crane, winch, and rescue line in one coil. Its obvious job was roping stock, but the forgotten uses are the story. A riata dragged firewood to camp behind the saddle, hauled a bogged steer or a bogged man out of quicksand along the brazos, and lowered a ranger down a bluff to water no horse could reach. Stretched between trees, it hung meat beyond the reach of wolves. Looped around a wagon wheel with the horse pulling, it became a windlass that could lift or drag several times what men could move by hand. In flood season, companies crossed swollen rivers by sending one strong swimmer over with the riata, then ferrying men and gear along the fixed line, a technique that saved lives every spring. A good 60-foot riata took a skilled braider a week to make and sold for $4 or $5, and men oiled and coiled them with the care modern climbers give a rope because their life ran through it. The braiding craft survives among a dwindling handful of vaquero traditionalists. The rescue techniques, the windlass, the fixed river crossing have simply fallen out of common knowledge. Number 2, twist tobacco, and no, not for smoking. Rangers who never touched a pipe still carried a twist of dark rope tobacco in a vest pocket, because on the frontier, tobacco was a medicine chest and a bank account rolled into one. A chewed wad pressed onto a wasp sting, a scorpion sting, or a fire ant bite pulled the burnout within minutes. A folk remedy so consistent that ranch families used it into the 1960s, and modern chemistry gives it some backing, since tobacco alkaloids have mild numbing effects. Wet tobacco packed against an aching tooth deadened it enough to sleep, which mattered when the nearest dentist was 200 miles east. A few leaves dropped in a horse's feed was the era's dewormer, standard practice in cavalry stables, and beyond medicine, tobacco was currency. A twist cost a dime in the settlements and bought information, guides, ferry crossings, and goodwill at any camp, cow camp, or a border village between the Red River and the Rio Grande. Men who did not use it carried it anyway, precisely because everyone else wanted it. It weighed 2 ounces. It opened doors, killed pain, and calmed nerves around 100 tense campfires. The medical uses vanished with the frontier doctors who recorded them, and the bartering wisdom, carry what other people want, went with them. And finally, number 1, reading sign. The most important survival tool a Texas Ranger carried weighed nothing, cost nothing, and took 10 years to acquire. The trained eye. Rangers could look at a stretch of ground and read it like a printed page. Horse tracks told them the number of riders, the direction, the speed, and whether the horses were shod, which meant white men, or barefoot, which usually meant Comanche. Bent grass told them how many hours old the trail was because grass springs back at a known rate. A dust cloud on the horizon told them cattle, horses, or wind each moves differently. Birds flushing 2 ridges over told them something was moving there before any human eye could see it. Captains like Rip Ford and Sewell Ross valued 1 good trailer over 10 good shots, and the muster rolls paid tracker scouts accordingly. This skill found lost children, recovered stolen horse herds, and warned camps of raids hours before they arrived. It was taught the only way it can be taught, years of riding beside someone who knew, with every mistake corrected on the spot. When the frontier closed, the classroom closed with it. A handful of trackers still teach it to border agents and search and rescue teams. For everyone else, the deepest survival tool the Rangers carried has simply gone dark. From rawhide strings to the reading of the ground itself, these 20 tools share one thread. Almost none of them were purchased, and all of them were understood. The Rangers survived not because they carried more, but because they knew more, and every item in the saddlebag did 5 jobs. Try one this week. Make char cloth, braid rawhide, or grind some parched corn, then come back and tell me which one surprised you. And tell me in the comments, what did your grandfather carry that nobody teaches anymore? Because this knowledge only dies if we let it.